Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan and welcome to today's video where we are talking all about my 2024 reading stats and how and if I met my 2024 goals, as well as the goals that I am setting for 2025. I think this is going to be a pretty jam-packed video, so let's just go ahead and get right into it. So let's talk stats. Stats are something I love keeping track of when it comes to my reading. I track all of my books and I write reviews on Goodreads, but I also keep my own spreadsheet in Google Sheets with all of the books that I read throughout the year and other information that I find interesting to track related to the books. I go through most of that information in my monthly wrap-ups. In case you've never watched one of those of mine before, I do talk about some of these stats monthly at the start of those videos, and then every year I like to look back on the year as a whole, look at my stats, notice some specific trends in my reading and whether those are things that I want to continue with my reading in the future or if they're things that I want to change based on the stats, and some of them are just more for fun. So I think all of that is just so interesting to look at, so let's talk about them. I'm looking this way at my computer, but I will put up the tables and charts that I'm talking about as I go through them. So let's start with talking about number of books that I read every month and in the entire year of 2024. I do set a Goodreads reading goal for myself every single year. This last year it was 100 books, which I consider to be a pretty conservative goal for myself. I have read over 100 books every year for the past, I think, 5 years since I have been reading as an adult, making YouTube videos. This year I did reach that goal again. I ended up reading 125 books last year, and this is the breakdown of how many I read each month. I am very surprised to see January and May being the complete standout months where I read 20 books in each of those months. I don't really know why. I think January must have just been like start of the year excitement, and then May I do think I was doing a readathon that month. I think that's when Escape the Readathon was. So I definitely read more than my average during those months, and then all of the other months, most of them were 10 and below. December creeped up a little above that with 12 books, but definitely interesting to look at. Something else I find interesting to look at is my average rating per month. Because I would say the previous chart showed my best reading month based on the numbers, I also think it's interesting to look at my best reading month based on my ratings, because just because I read a lot of books doesn't mean I love them all, obviously. So when I look at my average ratings per month, it's interesting. The numbers are a little bit hard to read here, but I think I'm seeing that January is not my highest rating month, but May actually is. So I read the most and I enjoyed the most in that month, so I'll have to look back at what those books were. But also March and October look to have been good rating months for me too, even though I didn't read quite as many books in those months. Okay, then I want to do the same thing looking at all the genres that I read this year. So I am not surprised at all when I look at the number of books I read in each genre to see mystery thrillers come out on top with 47 of my books being one of those genres, and then contemporary and romance making up the rest of the majority with 44 books. That definitely tracks with what I know about myself to be my most read genres. But when I switch it to look at my average rating per genre, this is really interesting information. Mystery thrillers are almost my lowest rated genre, second only to fantasy, which I know I don't like. But having mystery thrillers be my most read and my second lowest rated genre tells me that something needs to change. And this is something I'll talk about when I talk about my 2025 goals, but 2024 as a whole was one of my worst reading years when it comes to finding new favorites. I only had like 7 5-star books in the whole year, and of all of my top 10, almost none of them were mystery thrillers. So I think I'm finding that though I pick up a lot of mystery thrillers, I don't love them. I should stop reading so many. What I should be picking up more of, based on this chart, is historical fiction. I only read 10 historical fiction books last year, but I rated them an average of 3.9 stars. I should take that into account and honestly read more historical fiction books if I want to enjoy what I'm reading. So again, you'll see that come back into play when I get into my 2025 goals. Another thing that I track every month is the publishers of the books that I'm reading, and I track not only the specific imprint of the books, but I also track then their parent companies, mostly because I want to see if any trends emerge. I don't have any goals related to this or anything, but it's interesting to see of the books I pick up, what are they most often published by. And as you can see, Penguin Random House makes up the majority with 47 of the books being published by one of their imprints. The other 4 of the big 5 publishers are relatively even, as well as books published by independent presses. I would say that might be something that I make a goal in the future, to read more independently published books. However, once again, looking at my average rating per publisher, independent books actually I rate the lowest. So while I'm not going to take that to say I should never read independently published books, I am going to take that to say maybe I should look into those books a little bit more before picking them up, to really make sure their synopses are things that I think I'm going to enjoy. Especially because I do have a platform. I take that somewhat seriously, that the books I pick up, I am also talking about to thousands of people. And I don't want to pick up independently published books that might have lower marketing budgets. They might already be being shown to fewer people and then not rate them highly. I don't want to modify my ratings of books to be fake, but I do want to be intentional about featuring books that I do think I'm going to enjoy and that I hope I can rave about and introduce to a larger audience than they might get on their own. That's at least what's running through my head when I look at some of this information and my goals around publishers of books in the future. I'm not setting anything to be firm, but that's why I think it's interesting to at least look at. Something else I find somewhat interesting to look at is the number of books I read per publication year. I'm not at all surprised to see that the vast majority of the books I picked up were 2024 releases. I do read a lot of ARCs, so that's early review copies. So of course those are books coming out in the year that I'm reviewing them. I also read a lot of Book of the Month and Aardvark books because I make content around them, and those are always new release books as well. Then you can see I had a large handful of books that I read that were 2023 releases, so books that I maybe wanted to catch up on from the previous year that I didn't get to in 2023, but then 2022 and before, it's really a small handful within each of those years. Another thing I track and talk about in my monthly wrap-ups is the format of books that I read. Here is a little donut chart showing how this breaks down. Not at all surprised once again to see that 40% of my reading is done via audiobook. Honestly, it's probably even a little bit higher than this because sometimes I do tandem read. I will get the audio and read it along with my physical book, or even sometimes my ebook. And if that's the case, I kind of make a judgment call about whether I read it more physically or on audio, but just know that is something I do a lot. And then 6.8% of my reading was ebooks this year. I am happy with that. I only just got a Kindle last December, so a year ago, and I am loving using that for my NetGalley ARCs. And then you can see paperbacks and hardcovers combined make up about a quarter of my reading. And then let's quickly talk about ratings, because like I said, I consider 2024 to have been a pretty slumpy year in relation to my number of 5-star reads. I only had 7 5-star books, which makes up 5.6% of my reading. That is so sad. I am definitely hoping to get more in 2025. I am happy to see that 40% of my books were 4 stars, so I was enjoying a lot of what I was reading. I just wasn't finding 5-star favorites. Not sure why that is. Gonna have to do some internal reflection on that, but interesting to see. 37% of my books being rated 3 stars seems to make sense to me. That makes sense that a lot of books I would consider average. And then 2 stars was only about 15%, and 1 star was less than 1%. That was only one book that I rated 1 star. So I'm happy to see those 2 ratings not be super high, but again, I really hope I can increase the number of 5-star books I get next year. Okay, special guest joining me for the rest of this video. Apologies if he makes distracting, adorable sounds. But now let's talk about author demographics. This is something I find very interesting to track, and it's something that I had a goal around this year. I made a goal to read 40% non-white authors. This was based on the previous year. I think I had naturally read about 30% non-white without making it a goal and really tracking it all that closely month by month. So I figured if I had it as a goal, if I thought intentionally about it, I would be able to raise it up to 40%. And here's the breakdown that I ended up with. And honestly, I am very surprised and disappointed by this information, especially because this is something that was top of mind for me all year. I talked about this in each one of my monthly wrap-ups. And when picking about books, I very often would look at the author's race or ethnicity before picking the book up, and I thought I was prioritizing diverse authors. However, clearly not enough. I ended up with only 28% of my reading being by non-white authors, 72% being by white authors. And I think what this is showing me is that I, again, am just picking up junk. And I really think that a lot of this is white female thriller authors. I didn't take the time to break this out by genre, but that is my suspicion, is that a lot of these white authors wrote thrillers that I read this year. So I'm thinking that I really just need to cut down on the number of books that I pick up that are thrillers written by authors I've read before. And I guess a little bit because I would consider them my comfort zone, but I'm not enjoying them and they're not helping me reach my goals. So I am really disappointed that I did not meet that author demographic diversity goal that I set for this year, and I am going to prioritize it again for next year. So I hope I can do better because this is something that is important to me. A little bit less important, but still interesting to look at, is the gender identity of the authors I'm reading. As you can see, 77% of the books I'm reading are written by female authors. Again, a lot of them are white, so I think that's a problem. I don't necessarily want to read more male authors, but this is somewhat interesting. And only 3.2% of the authors I'm reading from identify as non-binary. That's something I would like to continue prioritizing over time, but I don't have any specific goals around it at this time. And then the very last thing that I track and that I did have a goal around this year is the diverse representation inside of books. So not only does that include racial diversity, because often authors of color will write about main characters of color, so I count that as diversity, but it can also include things like disability representation, religious diversity, translated books, as well as books with queer representation. I consider all of that to be diverse representation inside of books, and my goal this year was to read 50% of books with some sort of diverse representation. And again, I'm disappointed to say that I did not reach that goal, and I ended up at about 39%. Again, I thought this was something I was tracking okay on, but again, I really think it's those mystery thrillers just killing me. Diversity is so hard to find in the mystery thriller genre, and despite my best efforts, I did not read enough of it. So we're gonna make some changes and adjustments into the next year. So that brings me to my 2025 goals. And I did go ahead and set 10 goals for myself going into this next year. That is a lot of goals for me, and I've been a little bit vocal about being hesitant to set too many goals in years past because I don't like failing at goals. But clearly, even when I set fewer goals, I still don't necessarily always reach them. So I might as well set some more goals to really try to course correct the things that I want to change. Also, it's a little bit more exciting to have more goals to track. Let's be honest, you clicked on a goals video, you probably want to see me actually have some goals. So we've got 10 of them. Let's talk about them. So my first goal is my Goodreads reading challenge, and it is to read 120 books next year. As long as I maintain the reading speed that I had this year, that should be no problem again. I have also had years where I way surpassed that, so I'm hoping this is a somewhat conservative goal and I end up reading more than that. My second goal is more of a personal goal, and it's to complete 120 workouts. This one has a little bit of a story around it. I think it was 2 years ago I set a goal for myself, inspired by my husband, or he gave me the idea to complete a workout for every book that I read. The idea behind it is that if I have all this time to be reading books, I do also have the time to move my body. It's something that does not come necessarily naturally to me. I don't dedicate a lot of time to working out, but I know it's important, especially because I did just have a baby. My body has gone through a lot of changes in the last 5-ish years. And now that I think I'm done with babies, it's time for me to get my health back in order. The thing about that previous goal that never really worked for me is that I don't like a moving goalpost. I didn't like starting the year not knowing what my goal was going to be in terms of workouts, and having that pressure of like every time I read an additional book, I would have to find the time to make the workout. Again, in theory, it shouldn't be that hard, but I don't want my reading to be like weirdly making me feel pressured for something else. So instead, I'm just going to set them to the same number as a goal. And then if I end up reading more than 120 books, that doesn't add pressure for me to do more workouts. 120 workouts within a year is not that many. It's about a workout every 3 days. Come on, I can do it. I'm including like walks and things, so I know it's healthy for my body, so I want to do it. Okay, goal number 3 is the same as 2024, and it is to read 40% non-white authors. So again, I want to increase that from the 28% that I read this year, and I have some strategies in place to do that. My goal number 4 is to read 50% of my books with diverse representation inside them, up from 39%. Again, I'm counting all of those those same categories. So it should be relatively easy to hit as long as I make the changes within my reading that I want to make. Goal number 5 is kind of a fun content related goal. It is to post 5 book of the month vlogs, 5 aardvark vlogs, and 5 ARC vlogs throughout the year. These are the 3 main recurring vlog series that I have on my channel. I love doing them. I know that I can't do all of them every month, but I should be able to cycle through them and post 5 of each kind before the year is over. Okay, goals number 6 and 7 are related to the genres that I'm reading. And I already alluded to them when I talked about my average ratings per genre, but goal number 6 is to read only 25% or lower books in the mystery thriller genre. So that would be down from the 38% of my reading that mystery thrillers currently make up. I think that will help me stop reading mediocre thrillers and hopefully raise my average rating for the year. It will also hopefully help me continue to increase the diversity of my reading, because mystery thrillers is one of the worst genres for author diversity and diverse representation just in general. So the ones that I do read, I want them to be intentional. I want them to be the best of the best, the ones that I'm hearing the most hype for, or the ones by specific authors that I want to support. Goal number 7 is to read 25% or more historical fiction and nonfiction. So that would be an increase from about 14% of my reading that were those 2 genres combined this year. That again is because those are typically higher rated genres. I tend to be pretty good about picking out those types of books that I'm going to enjoy, and I do think they have far more diverse representation naturally within them. So I think it will help with all the goals. All right, goal number 8 is to post 52 videos in the year 2025. That will be an increase from the 42 videos that I posted in 2024. That is obviously an average of a video a week. That is doable, but a little bit of a stretch. When I'm at my best and my least busy and stressed, I can post like 2 videos a week, but that is definitely not maintainable or sustainable for the entire year. Obviously, when I'm at my most stressed, I don't post at all. So it all averages out to about 1 video a week. I think I can do it, so I'm excited to try. Goal number 9 is to read 25 5-star books. I am hereby declaring my 5-star slump, my 5-star drought, to be over this year. I'm ready to start picking books that I'm going to love, and I want to read the most 5-star books that I've ever read in a year. In 2024, of course, I only had 7 5-star books, which is a travesty. In 2023, I did have 23 5-star books. In 2022, I had 18. In 2021, I had 14. And in 2020, I had 18. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but it would be the most 5-star books I've ever had in a year. So manifesting it for myself. Let's see how close I can get to it. And last but not least, my goal number 10 is a subscriber count goal. This is not something I typically set for myself. I have said in videos before that I don't love subscriber count goals because it's out of my control. No matter what I do, no matter what content I post, no matter how much I market myself and advertise my videos, I cannot make other people press that subscribe button. And I don't love having goals that are inherently outside of my control, but admittedly, I do like hearing other people's subscriber goals, and I do like cheering people on and being excited for them when they reach those goals. Also, the previous goal I just said, number 9, of having 25 5-star reads, that's also outside of my control. So what am I doing here? I might as well set a subscriber goal, and to make it a nice round 5-based number, we're gonna say 5,000 subscribers. And that would be an increase from the approximately 3,775 that I have right now. And I think that if I keep up with my content like I want to, if I keep up with the consistency, if I keep up with the high quality books that I want to be reading, I do think that's achievable. But honestly, who knows? Because again, I can't make anybody push that subscribe button, but I will do the best I can. So those are my goals for 2025. We will see how they go. I really hope I do better on these goals than I did in 2024. Please let me know, what goals did you set for yourself this year, whether they're reading goals or personal goals. I would love to hear. I would love to cheer you on. Let's hype each other up and maybe even try to keep each other accountable for these goals throughout the year. I do hope to talk about these all in some of my monthly wrap-ups. I don't know if I'll talk about all of them in every wrap up, but I definitely want to keep checking up on them on a regular basis so that I can adjust as needed to work towards hitting them. I don't want to forget about these and come back a year later and be like, I don't even remember what my goals were. that would not be setting myself up for success. So hopefully you will hear me reference these in the future. But again, I would love to hear from you and what your goals are. Otherwise, I hope you are having a great start to the new year. Thank you so much for joining me and watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.